Welcome to the Massacre Matinee.
It is Friday, which means welcome back to the matinee. Well, matinee recording day. You guys are watching this on Monday. Today's episode is actually going to be a follow-up to your case. And did you realize that you got lucky number 13 for your first case?
Did I?
You got lucky number 13.
That is awesome.
You bitch.
I love that also because Jaden was born on the 13th.
Oh, that's awesome.
Weird fun fact. Her birthday is going to fall on a Friday, like every few years.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. I'm really hoping she'll be into like Jason and Friday the 13th, and we're going to
parties.
horrify Ryan's grandparents.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
I think it'd be Friday the 13th, Jason theme.
It absolutely would
now.
be.
Anyways.
So Kate's not here today.
Very sad.
No, she's I think she's going to see Jeff Dunham.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty awesome. Well, she would have already seen Jeff Dunham. Man, the timeline kind of fucks with my head a little bit. So my case today actually ties into your episode. Not a lot of people actually know, and we didn't bring it up in the last episode, but ever since recording that one, we've been talking in length about his daughter Emily. Come to find out that she is her own case. So I was originally going to call this kind of like a father like daughter sort of thing, but
yes.
It's not.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's sad. It's sad to say that, though.
It is sad to say that, but I don't think it is a like father like daughter kind of thing.
No?
No.
I'm very interested. I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't find anything myself. But I didn't spend as much time. I think you spent, looks like.
Yeah, I read through a few different articles, actually, and she had also done some interviews and stuff.
Oh, you found some interviews? Oh.
I didn't get complete.
But just something from her, though.
Right, something from her. And when she did what she did, she was in a dark place. She had been diagnosed with depression at 13. And that was shortly after a lot of things happened, so she had been in a dark place for a while.
I mean, I would think growing up, I know not necessarily always in her father's household, but just with a father like that, having any influence, I mean, it's not excusing everything, but very interested.
For those of you who have not yet listened to Faith's first episode on Ariel Castro, that was the previous episode, episode 13, I believe. I called it The Other Castro. A lesser known scum. That's what I called it. But this one's about his daughter Emily Castro. And just a brief kind of little highlight of what that was. Ariel Castro kidnapped 3 girls between, I think it was 2000 and 2004. 2002 and 2004, I think it was. And
the dirty wet sock.
Yeah, he kidnapped 3 girls, he tortured them and raped them and beat them and abused them, and eventually they did get free. It was 2013 when they got free and were arrested, so the longest one that was kidnapped was over a decade in capture. It's an insane episode.
Thinking about how much stuff can happen in a decade.
Right. So I mean, if you think about it, when she went into that house, cell phones didn't exist. And when she came out, like, iPhones were a big thing.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't seen that episode or watched that episode, listen to that episode. Wow.
Something about that episode.
If you haven't been all about that episode, go back and check out that episode. It'll give you a bit more context for this episode. But Emily Castro was Ariel Castro's daughter. He was a kidnapper in Ohio.
It's not funny, but a kidnapper, like, it's a profession.
Yeah,
it's
well,
shitty. I mean, I guess some people a profession in history.
Yeah. He had a short-lived career, thankfully.
Thank God. I was just impressed and really horrified, to be honest, would be the right word, by how little media coverage there was. I had never heard of the Ariel Castro.
Neither have I.
Ever.
Neither have I.
Until,
honestly,
like the 2 podcasts that I had you link, I had never heard of it, and it's just, I don't think there's any other kidnappers, or I almost want to say he was a potential serial killer, because I don't think he was ever going to let them go, and I do see an escalation there. He did not actually kill anyone, or them.
He intended on probably keeping him forever. I mean,
I feel like
if he had let him go, it would have
come
come back to him.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like if things had like somehow escalated and he was backed into a corner, he probably would have killed them.
Probably.
So he could have been a potential serial killer, hypothetically. But it just makes me...
Thankfully, we didn't have to find out.
Yeah. I don't think anyone else, I guess, kidnapping serial killers ever kept a victim that I've heard of.
No, I don't think so.
Over 10 years. Like, there's a few, like, 6-8 year cases that I have heard. That's sad, but 10, 12 years, like...
I would never want to be a hostage. I said that during your episode, and I'm going to say it again. I would never want to be kidnapped or be a hostage in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But Emily Castro was actually friends with two of the women that her father Ariel kidnapped, Gina De Jesus and Amanda Berry. They were friends with both Emily Castro and Arlene Castro. And I believe Arlene was with... Was it Amanda? No, Arlene was with Gina when Gina got kidnapped.
Yeah, the youngest and the last one. They were walking home from school together.
Oh, Amanda was the youngest.
Oh, yep, no, you're correct.
Because Amanda's the blonde, right?
Yes. Yes, the one that he was specifically fancying.
Fanciful of, yeah.
Yeah.
So, for a lot of Emily's childhood, their relationship between Ariel, her father, and Grimilda, her mother, was very, very tumultuous, and there was a lot of fighting and stuff. And she ended up living with her mother and her stepfather as a child. She did make the rare visit to Ariel's house, she said, but she remembers distinctly that during those times when those girls would have been there, he had big speakers from his band blocking off the stairs so you couldn't get up to the second floor,
and that's
and
what
she
I was
wasn't allowed past the kitchen
that he wouldn't let anybody
in the first floor. So that is just
not
insane.
To say anyone's ever to blame, but it's just crazy that he had people around. It's not like it was in some cabin miles away in the boonies. He was, in a very public, so to speak, place.
Yeah, and you said the band was there every Saturday, and like nobody noticed anything.
Yeah, like they didn't have people playing, but they practiced there. Is what I researched. Like multiple articles were referencing that. Yeah, he had family over. He had his brothers coming over. All the time, and a lot of them spoke in interviews and said that he never allowed anyone upstairs or into the basement, that they were only allowed on that first level into that kitchen area. So they never really knew.
Yeah,
he just thought he was some weird guy.
He also said it was a bit of a hoarder house too. So I mean, why would you want to go exploring?
I mean, that was the excuses that they said he was giving at times. That it was messy, that the plumbing was broken in the basement, and the way it was described, the condition of the room that they were allowed in, they believed him. It must be really messy and gross. So they just supposedly never questioned it.
I guess some people feel if I didn't see it, it didn't happen. Maybe it was just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So Emily, like I said, had been suffering from depression since she was 13 years old. That was actually, like, conveniently enough, very shortly before Ariel's first kidnapping.
Interesting.
Yeah. She would have been 13, I believe, in 2001 or 2002. I don't know what her birthday was. I'll be honest, I Googled it. Don't know why I thought Google might have some information, but... The only thing that ever came up was news articles. Yeah,
like I said, it was really hard to find anything.
I went through a lot of news articles. I was able to barely squeeze this page of notes out, but you bet your ass we're going to make it interesting.
I'm impressed
for half an
with
hour.
the page you got.
Yeah. Well, half of the page is just this backstory a little bit. So, April 21st of 2003 was when Amanda Berry was kidnapped. This would have put Emily at 15 at the time. And she had been, like she said, over to the house.
All right, or close to the ages of the girl. Like, it's two separate cases, but it's really interesting to see possibly how maybe the lack there of a relationship, because it sounds like she didn't have much of a relationship with her father, which thank goodness. Yeah. But it's interesting to see her psychology progress and how her life goes with her own case. And also to think about Ariel's.
Right.
And the fact that he was kidnapping girls right around his own daughter's ages. And, like, it's so disgusting. It's so hard to get through.
April 3rd, 2007. At this point, Emily is 19. Her boyfriend was like, hey, so bye. And that was her baby daddy. And she had been dealing with depression since she was 13 years old. And he was her world, and what was she going to do? And her family had actually spoke out about everything to say, yeah, you know, that's something that we've had to deal with like for a long time. She's fighting some demons right now, kind of thing. So the boyfriend leaves, and he's just like, okay, deuces, I'm out. And she's just so distraught. Then on April 4th of 2007, Emily, who was 19 at the time, decided to slash her 11-month-old daughter, Janila.
I think that's how
Janila.
I heard
I
it.
like
She was
Janila. We're going to go with Janila. If it's wrong, I apologize. Her daughter Janila's throat 4 times before slashing her own throat and slitting her wrists. And then when she realized that didn't work,
Janila lives too, right?
Yes.
Not to interrupt. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You're ruining
Continue.
the drama.
I'm sorry, I can't handle the drama with children. The babies.
I understand.
This is the little baby.
So she slashed her throat 4 times. She slashed her own throat, slashed her wrist, didn't feel like she was dying fast enough. So she's like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to go drown myself out back in the creek that just happened to be like off in the woods behind the house kind of thing.
This is a crude comment. Was she using something very dull?
I was going to say I think she might have been using a butter knife or something because...
I mean, it's good. I'm very grateful.
Well,
for not only the baby, but even for her, because that's not the resolution.
Severe injuries. If you look it up, you can actually see some of like from shortly after she was arrested, some like blood marking on her own neck, but it almost looks like she just hesitated on her own and figured drowning would be easier. I'm not sure, but she was going through some things, and so this happened 3 years after Amanda Berry was kidnapped. 4 years after. 4 years after Amanda Berry was kidnapped, to the same month. Even
that's just like crazy to me. Like the universe works in really weird ways.
So yeah, her name, the baby does survive. Yeah. The baby. Why did we have to do an episode alone? Kate, where are you? Help.
Janila.
Janila. The baby survives, and The 911 call must have been absolutely horrifying because Grimelda, I believe from what I read, somebody else, like a neighbor, ended up calling 911.
Okay, that's what was one of my questions.
Grimila ran out of the house with her granddaughter in her arms, trying to hold pressure and just blood everywhere. But the baby does survive.
Imagine being a grandmother, like everything she went through with her shitty wet sock of a fucking ex-husband. Raising her kids, and then her daughter's struggling, and then she has a baby,
and then she snaps. And it's very possible that she was dealing with postpartum because the baby was only 11 months.
That's a struggle no one understands unless you go through, and it's a very serious thing.
It is.
Very serious thing. So
as a side note, if you or someone you know might be dealing with postpartum depression, please get it checked out, because at that point, it's not just your life on the line.
Somebody, ask for help. It's out there. People love you.
Yes. Back to the story. Back to the murder. Well, it wasn't even really murder.
No, but it was definitely attempted. It's attempted.
It's kind of fucked.
From when I first seen it, it seemed like it was a valid attempt at murder, and it seems like a very valid attempt at suicide. Not very successfully.
Now, keep in mind, all of this happened before anybody even knew what Ariel was doing. Following everything that happened, like I said, the baby survived. Obviously, Emily survived. November 5th, the following year, 2008, she was sentenced to 25 years. She was looking for to make a plea deal for like a mentally unstable sort of thing.
Yeah, claim mental insanity.
I don't think that stuck.
That's a really hard one to ever get in court. You have to show that you do not understand consequences.
I wouldn't necessarily say insane.
Mental break, absolutely.
I would say that something happened that made it very, very difficult for you to make a sound choice.
Yes, and I think mental help is needed, not criminal.
You're still kind of responsible for that,
Exactly.
November 2008, she was sentenced to the 25 years. 3 days before Ariel was arrested, Emily actually spoke to him. And at that point, she was already in jail. So I'm assuming it would have been either a phone call or a visitation. But
good old jail call.
3 days before he was caught, she spoke to him. And she didn't know. I mean, she knew he was abusive, but she never would have fathomed in her mind that he was kidnapped
capable.
People and raped people.
He was a school bus driver.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It was just because everybody knew him, and he was just so friendly on the outside, kind of.
That's what it was like. It was very well known that he was a really bad husband and very abusive to his wife, but it seemed like he was really described as being like a very people person, and that he was really great to his kids is what I was finding, and that he loved kids supposedly. He was a school bus driver.
Well, we know he loved kids.
Yeah, just good old grandpa vibes, you know.
Yeah, and a year before Ariel was arrested, Grimilda actually died. Yeah, so she didn't even get to see.
That is not okay.
Him finally going to jail. I'm
sure,
you know, whatever your beliefs may be, she's seeing him from somewhere with a smile, you know?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And I believe he's dead now, isn't he?
I believe so, yeah, because he hung himself.
That's right.
Because he's dirty wet sock pansy.
Yeah.
And couldn't face consequences to his actions.
Precise. So after Ariel was arrested, the girls
She
were
was
freed.
waiting for him.
Everybody was happy. Both Gina DeJesus and Amanda Berry made statements saying that Emily was actually in the car with Ariel shortly before they were kidnapped, kind of thing. Yeah, like they saw him go by with her. I can't imagine the trauma
of that. Just, you know what I mean?
So this whole time, through this entire childhood, he was hiding this so well that like none of his family would have suspected him to do any of these things. And I really feel like something like that probably had a huge impact on Emily. I mean, depression, especially in your preteen years, which for our generation anyway, seemed to hit anywhere between like 10 and 15. We'll give it a nice wide range.
Yeah,
just
I'd
to
say
be fair.
personally 13 prime years.
13 is prime years for a lot of people, and that's how old she was.
Bless his soul, rest in peace, said 13 to 17 was the worst years ever.
I believe it. And I felt it, that's for sure. But she was at her peak prime puberty issues when her depression hit. And it's almost like it never really got a chance to work its kinks out. She committed a horrific crime 6 years after probably her first period.
I feel like there's so much more probably to the story. Just for their own reasons, don't want to look at or think about. But like you were touching on, for him to be able to hide that from them for so long, I think that says something about his psychology and what he's capable of. So I can only imagine how that could play into other roles as a parent and how that affected Emily possibly. What ways, we'll never know. She and a lot of people are claiming he wasn't really around much, but even that can cause some damage. If a man is capable of hiding 3 women for multiple years and having people around in the location like that,
how real were
what else is he capable of, you know?
Any of his relationships that he can be so two-faced like that, and how does that affect your developmental growth as a child?
Looking up to, you know, your role model, because it doesn't matter who they are, especially those young years, that's your role model.
Right. And I mean, as someone that my stepdad came into my life when I was 3 years old, and I hated him all of my life up until like 8 years ago. No, I'd like to say we're pretty good friends.
Yeah.
Well,
in your adult years.
Exactly. And
as
that,
two adults,
in
you're
that
able to be
same
friends.
regard, like, you got to get like halfway through your 20s before you really start to mature
and figure out who you
are. Figure out who you are. And she didn't even get that chance before this incident
say the same
happened.
thing about
and now she's got to spend
members.
25 years in jail trying to figure out who she is in such a secluded situation. I do feel for her. I feel like she was really feeling some problems. I feel like she absolutely went about solving those problems the wrong fucking way.
Absolutely. You answered one question I had, and I didn't know where to interject it, but I'm glad you answered it. And that was going to be my one question is, did we or do we believe that she was truly suffering from depression, or was it just the lawyers pulling that card? I personally think your case explained that she really was.
I think
suffering,
she really was depressed.
And I'm really glad to get that answer, at least from this, because it's just so crazy to try to imagine, you know, someone being capable of doing that. I just glad we got to touch on that. you got to pull up something.
Right. And
with her mom
I'd
and
like to
people
think that,
validating that, yes, she suffered from this for years.
Right.
And
at this point, this happened, she was sentenced in 2008, and I believe they probably ended up giving her time served. So 25 years minus roughly 6 months that she already served at that point. So if we'll just say 2008 for round math. That would put her out in 2042. So she's over half her sentence at this point, I believe.
Maybe not everyone will agree. I kind of think it's kind of sad that she's in prison, jail. I do know what she did was an attempted murder. It was a violent act she tried to do. Absolutely. But I don't think...
I do believe she was getting...
It's a mental health problem.
I do believe she was getting help with
Is she getting help in there?
And
okay.
I don't,
Some prisons
I don't know
are great.
if it's
Some
like an ongoing thing, but...
I hope so for her sake.
I mean, at this point,
because like you said, being isolated and stuff and just punished, so to speak, for it. Yes, she deserves consequences for that.
Right now in 2023, we're 15 years later at this point. So
I'd hope she's getting...
She's mid-30s at this point.
That way, when she does hopefully get out, she is a different. She's not dealing with the same thing she was dealing with at 13.
That's just it, is it necessary to take away someone's entire working years?
That's
for a situation like this. I feel like they should have considered a mental health facility first with higher security type of situation. And give it like maybe like a probationary period. Stay in this mental health facility, get some help for 2 years.
Consequences of some form.
And if you show improvement, if you show that you're literally becoming a better person at this point,
contributing to society. Sorry, I can't speak today.
Precise. But I wouldn't say, go to this mental health facility. If you're good in 2 years, we'll just let you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say,
exactly.
in 2 years, we'll reevaluate. If you're still showing that you've got some problems going on in there, we're going to leave you in there a little longer. If you're showing that you've got no remorse, we're going to put you in jail for 20 years. If you're showing that you've got remorse, but you've got help now and things are going, like, super fucking well, then I would say more like, 5 years.
Exactly. I'd agree with that.
Because you did something wrong, you still need to serve that term, but that remorse makes all the difference.
It does, and especially when there's multiple people to kind of validate that this isn't just not that it's ever an excuse, but it's not something that was... I mean, I just hate to say people try to pull the insanity card all the time when they're not, and they don't have any issue. There's some really horrible people out there, I guess, that do have an issue, but not the way it's supposed to be seen in court, like Jeffrey Dahmer. We've seen some really horrible people that just try to hide behind that insanity and I don't understand what I'm doing type thing when they're very aware of the violence and the pain they're causing.
And knowingly
I'm
lying
glad to
about
see
things like that too.
She's not falling under that category because her father is a horrible individual.
Absolutely. So but I also didn't...
glad to see
there
it was
no,
valid,
like you said, it was hard to find...
and she should get help then,
Right. Like you said, it was hard to find information on this case. So I don't know if there was issues in her relationship with her boyfriend prior to him leaving. I don't know if her depression was putting a strain on the relationship or if he was abusive and that was putting a strain. Something could have been happening that we don't have details on because this is such a small case. A lot of these articles on Emily Castro's arrest were actually written after Ariel was arrested. Ariel's case was so big that people were writing articles saying, hey, did you know that the Cleveland kidnapper's daughter was also a criminal? Guess it runs in the family.
That's how I found out.
And that's why I put like father, like daughter question mark on the top of my notes. And I don't think this was a like father, like daughter situation. First of all, her crime happened first, so... But the proximity between... how soon after his crimes that happened, whether she knew about him or not, how soon after that situation, her situation happened and she got found out first and he was able to keep it going.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Some backstory on this depression and is this coming from Emily or is this coming from her legal team?
Exactly. And
I had a big question on that.
I really think that it was coming from
Emily.
Her depression.
Yeah.
And some of the articles did mention that they weren't sure if she was dealing with, they said PPD, but I was assuming they meant postpartum depression.
I would assume.
Which is very possible. I mean, you can spontaneously get postpartum depression upwards of like 3 years after your baby is born. And it's still considered postpartum. I mean, if you're having a panic attack because your baby's in another room, you need to talk to your doctor.
Yep, and that was there's lots of symptoms. I believe there's 5 specifically they look for. 2 are required for the diagnosis, and one of those 2 I do know from a few doctors that I've spoken to from just having children and stuff is I have one child.
Sometimes she seems like a herd of children just on her own though.
But is having a fear about either being away from the baby or you don't want to be around your baby. You have to have an anxiety or a fear that relates to the baby specifically. Yep. It's good information to have that, if you're too afraid to let go of your baby, it gives you too much anxiety, or you just need a break constantly and you feel like you cannot function, and it's just sensory overload, then both of those are a sign that you need to talk to somebody. Right. It's okay.
Please don't put your babies in closets just because they're loud.
No.
Please don't leave them outside. Don't leave your baby in the car when you go to the fucking grocery store.
No.
Like, you do need to take care of your baby, and if you don't feel like you can take sufficient care of your baby, or you need help,
talk to somebody.
You need help.
And get help.
Yeah, please. Don't hurt your babies.
They didn't ask to be here.
Don't rape your babies either. See, that's what makes this so weird. Is like, her father was going after people that were so young, and what makes me wonder, my theory is that the boyfriend leaving was just a breaking point.
Oh, 100% agree. I think the depression was there. Has said, possibly postpartum depression on top of it, right. And then that boyfriend leaving probably just triggered.
But my theory, I almost wonder if maybe she was starting to suspect something of Ariel.
Yeah, and that on top of everything too.
And like, she was like,
so
and it was just, maybe that was the final thing, and she was like, I'm not going to leave my baby to get raped by this man too.
Yeah.
Or something, or beaten, or something, because, I mean, there was abuse happening from him. I don't know if there was abuse happening anywhere else in the family dynamic, but for one reason or another, she did not want to leave that baby behind, but she did not want to exist anymore. And I feel like finding the answer to why she was trying to take the baby with her is what really would help determine if it was depression or if it was suspicion.
Yeah, that's a good theory. I like that theory. I think
keep in mind that we are not psychologists. No. We are not trained professionals.
It helps to understand what makes people make bad choices to hopefully help people make better choices in the future and make the world a better place. That's why I'm very interested on those things. As
weird as it sounds, ever since I started researching true crime, it's like one of the many things that has helped me become a better person, because it's like, wow, you know, my life's not that bad.
Yeah, no, it definitely puts things into perspective for you, that's for sure. Like I said, the Ariel Castro case put my life into perspective, thinking about how much I've done and been able to do or could do with 12 years of my life, and to think of these girls not being able to do anything. Like, a lot of them came out as an adult, and they went in as children. They missed out on, you know, the end of high school. They missed out on prom. They missed out on early relationships, social dynamics. They missed out on so much, whether it's physical things that they could have achieved in their life, possible careers that they could have started. You know, it's so many things. And it's just devastating to think about. There's some bad bitches.
Truth, but I mean...
And a few of them have some really good careers, it seems like now. That's also why the universe works in mysterious ways. Not going to say it's okay or fair, but the universe works in mysterious ways. Both of them have, 2 of the 3 have multiple signed books.
That's okay, so...
I don't know how well they're doing, but they claim they're both doing well, the 2 of the 3. You know, the first one.
I am not in this situation. It may come across as blunt or harsh or however you might take it.
Say it.
I am not intending for this to come across as victim shaming, but
no. Just an insight.
I have never really been a huge fan of people that just decide to turn around and make a buck on their situation.
Oh, for sure.
Like, if... I'm not strong enough to survive any of the situations that these women have survived. I will be the first to fucking say that. I'm a little bitch. I don't want to be a hostage. I'd rather fucking die. However, in the hypothetical situation where I went through something like this and I survived, I wouldn't want to be writing books and getting more attention and having everybody staring at me and talking about my history.
That was Michelle.
I wouldn't want any of that.
The oldest one, Michelle, she mentions how the other two girls, they go around and they travel and they speak up about abuse, domestic violence, and they share their story. One of them has a book as well. I believe it's Amanda that has a book as well. Okay. Michelle is the other one. She has 2 books, but she does not travel with the other girls, and she said she hasn't seen them in a very long time because she can't handle it. She wants to put that chapter behind her. She wrote her book to get it out and to process it. Mm-hmm. And she said that she has a lot of love for those girls. They will always have a connection and a bond, but for right now, as she put it, she cannot handle
But
that.
Michelle was the older one.
Yeah,
she was the one that was 21 when she was taken. So
different a little bit than what you're saying, but kind of similar to what you're saying. She doesn't want that attention. She doesn't want to be in the light.
It's different generationally, though.
To where Amanda and I think Georgina. I can't really speak for them. If it's about the money, who knows? It could be. But I believe Amanda, she talked about it a little bit. I mean, what I was bringing up, losing all those years, being a child. You're going out, a lot of your friends already have established careers. You don't have a high school diploma.
You gotta make
How are you
money
going to go
somehow.
get a job? So when the opportunity is provided to, hey, write a book about your experience. Hey, we'll pay you to come do talks on tours around the country and share your experience to hopefully, give insight for other women. Just warning signs of what to look for so this doesn't happen to you. Who wouldn't kind of take that? I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. I mean, but if
it's kind of like accepting the COVID stimulus package. Like, somebody's offering you free money. Why say no?
I mean, I'm not disagreeing. They definitely could have just said no and went and got a job at Wendy's and continued their life there. But they did miss out on 10 years. And if you're handed an opportunity, like, hey, this horrible experience you went through, you can make a career out of just talking about it if you're comfortable with it.
Right.
Where Michelle said no. Like, she did write her book, but she doesn't want to talk about it. She can't talk about it. She doesn't spend time with the other 2 girls because she can't handle it mentally. She had to put it behind her.
I think that's
I don't know
why
what
I
she's
can
doing.
relate
No one
to
knows what she's
Michelle
doing
in
now.
that situation, because I am the age now that Michelle was
and none
when
of them
she
are
got
wrong
out.
for their choices. Everyone processes different, you know. But I agree. Like, if you're just gonna make a buck out of it solely to make a buck off it, that says something about your character. You're a little shitty, a little bit, a little touch there, shitty. I don't really know. Amanda did, like, since she talked about missing time and not really knowing what to do with her life at this point, having a young daughter to provide for, and how she talks about, obviously she wishes she was never kidnapped, but
I mean,
her life, she says, is almost probably better than what it would have been without it, because of the opportunities that it opened for her. And she said that is a very hard thing for her to handle on her own mentally,
understandably,
because, like you said, I mean, she is getting all this money, all this opportunity. She wouldn't have been there.
A different
battle, That's why
demon.
that case is so crazy, and I'm so glad I got to talk about it, even though it's probably understand because I'm spaz.
But it's crazy that everything happened between Ariel and Emily in such a close timeline. I mean, kidnaps happen. Well, she gets depression. Yeah. As a pubescent teen, the kidnaps happen. Couple years later,
she has a baby.
Almost a year after that, he leaves her.
And she
tries to kill the baby. Yeah. She goes to jail, and then he gets caught. That's just an insane timeline. Yeah. I'm thinking this is going to be episode 13.5. They're kind of linked together,
We did talk so much about it. It's hard not to.
Honestly, this is going to be almost a 40-minute episode. Probably close to a 40-minute episode.
Well, there you go. You were worried.
So I was worried.
Not with me. I just won't shut the fuck up.
So worried.
You're welcome.
So worried. So, I like to try and raise the spirits with humor, as I tend to do.
Yes.
Humor me. In typical morbid situations. So, the doozy scale today. How many Prozacs?
I'd say 4.
4
It's
Prozacs.
not the worst we've had. Not the worst you've done.
It's not
that
the
I've heard.
worst.
It's up there though.
It's definitely a situation
It's
that
a
could have. It's one of those
psychological-
ones that it could have been prevented.
Mm-hmm.
It very easily could have been prevented. And if her family knew that she was fighting depression that whole time,
Yeah.
why did they leave her alone with the baby? She was living with her mom, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they leave her alone with the baby? We will see you guys next week. Kate will be back next week. Maybe
Yay, we
maybe
miss
there'll be a
you.
little bit less chaos.
I'll probably. But
She's
The mom.
we
need mom.
I'm the oldest, but she's the mom. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.